Have you ever wondered how the world's most iconic logotypes were created? Many people believe that a simple logo is simple to design, which isn't true at all. In fact, if you've done any sort of creative work in brand identity, you'll know that this is just not true. I've designed hundreds of logotypes in my 10-year career as a brand identity designer. So in this video, I'm going to show you the secret methods that we use as logotype designers to make our logotypes look more professional and to stand out. Taking your logos that could look like this and make them into this. The first method is a simple one for consistency. Now, typography is made up of components. You see, the N has the same attributes as an I, an H, and also an M. The C and the E are basically the same components used. The way that type works is we recycle the same parts of a letter over and over again, and we optically balance them. To keep consistency in your type and logotypes, we use grids and components. Within this grid, there's something known as the X height. This is the size of the bottom of the normal characters to the top of the non-capitalized characters. This X height is there so that all the lowercase letters are on the same line. We also have what's known as the ascender height, which is where things like the bar on the H goes up, the stem. We also have the opposite of that called the descender height. That's for like the Qs, the Ps. We also have cap heights. This is how we create the proportions of our letter forms. But within the letter forms, we also have things known as counters. This is the space that isn't a space inside of a letter form, so the inner part of the O. With script lettering and logotypes, we have something known as the bowl. This is essentially the bowl or the connector to the next letter form. These are all taken from one component. We just copy these over. Consistency doesn't mean just copying, but it means having a consistent look and feel throughout. But recycling things like the connector can allude to this idea of consistency. Our brains love patterns, and that is how our logotypes look good, through consistency. Another form of consistency is the angle at which the lettering or the logotype is. If everything's like sans serif, where it's just vertical, you keep everything vertical that needs to be, aside from things like the V, the W, the K. But when we have script lettering, that fancy type or brush script, all of the lines are sort of italicized. We use grids to help us keep that in line and consistent. Does it mean that every shape is on that axis? No, it means that it all visually should look like it's on that axis. So that's the secret method number one, using guides and grids to make sure the typography is consistent throughout. The second secret method is refine, 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 and refine again. I have a course called Logo Launch where I teach logotype design to people who've never done a logotype before, they've never lettered. And the number one thing I try to instill into every student is this idea that we refine all the time. Once we have an idea that we've generated, we get our tracing paper out or create a new layer in Procreate. We break the process down. Instead of thinking that we have to have this amazing logotype at the start and then we have to sketch it perfectly, that's not realistic. We refine and we keep iterating upon it. We keep annotating. The refinement process is one of the most fun parts because you can just draw all over the work. You can make little notes about things that you don't have to remember. So when you draw it, scan it, print it off, then start refining and adding notes. Maybe the H is too far away from the I, or maybe the double L's need to be not looped, but just standard L's. Maybe there's a point in there that doesn't work very well, or maybe it just doesn't look too good for some reason at small scales. A good exercise is actually to draw out your signature. You can then scan that back in through your phone, just take a picture of it, print it off, get some tracing paper and draw over it again, trying to clean it up. That is basically the refining stages. Then we test them out after that. Very rarely do I just create some brush lettering and then that's it, and I bring it into Illustrator. It doesn't work like that. The same is in Illustrator. We copy and paste all the time. Duplicating your work is one way of making sure that you never lose a good copy of something that you're working on. Because we're making so many adjustments, I'm always duplicating, alt dragging in Adobe Illustrator, or making a new section in glyphs. This means I don't have to press the undo button, but it's also just part of my muscle memory now. If I like the idea that I have now and I just want to see what happens differently, I will option Alt, click and drag, and it will just make a new one for me instantly. And it's free as well, so you don't have to worry. The next secret method is the pen tool box method. Using the pen tool is difficult. You all know that, especially if you're a beginner. But even for those who are very good at the pen tool, but they've never tried to trace letter forms. You might have seen people draw like this with the pen tool, where every anchor point and line just looks so harmonious. It looks like, I don't know, it just this crazy system. What about to tell you that it's actually a lot simpler, but we use this system for a reason. I'll tell you the reason first. The reason behind this system is that it makes it easier for us to edit the letters and to transform them into thicker shapes, thicker weights in font softwares. This method also reduces the amount of points we need, anchor points, which is information within the design we need to get the perfect curves that we want. Another reason for this is that's how vector talks. That's how vector programs work. If you draw out a circle, you'll notice that there is a point at the top, the bottom, the left and right. Now to get this, all you need to do is draw a box around your shape or letter. Now wherever that box hits the letter form, that is where an anchor point goes. Follow the box, then you hold, you drag, which brings the handle out in the shape of the box in the same line. That is where the handle goes. That's how it's supposed to be horizontal. What you'll start to find is that we go to the extrema of the curves, or the extreme parts where the curve is the most out of the shape, and we plot our points there, and we use two curves, the horizontal and vertical curves. We pull on these two and we only focus on one handle. This is really a powerful way of creating type because it's a system. You don't have to worry about it too much. This box method also means that it's easier to view at small scales because that's how vector sort of speaks. Aliasing is a real thing, and the anchor point sort of can determine the guessing, which is basically aliasing for fonts. Are you still with me? I hope so, because this video is like all the secrets I'm giving out here. Another secret method that a lot of people don't know about is testing. But before I go into that, I just want to thank the sponsor of this video, Walling. Walling is a beautiful and engaging alternative to sharing your work through emails, documents, and presentation slides. You can create and share beautiful pages for ideas, creative work, and project proposals, sales pitches, or even invoices. You can add images, files, tables, and project schedules, and customize them and design all the colors and have a wall that looks stunning, even for presenting your own work. With just one click, you can publish your wall and send a link to your client via email. Walling is also responsive and works on your phone, which is amazing. So click down below in the description if you want to start using Walling and just check them out. They're really cool. It's a new way of presenting your work and ideating. So go and check them out. And thank you for sponsoring the video. Testing. This is big. How do we know when a logotype works well? Well, here's one method I teach at Logo Launch. Reflection. Simply take your logotype that you've scanned in, reflect it horizontally. Your logotype will look like it's gone through a mirror, which is exactly what we want. Because what this does is it allows us to start looking at the shapes instead of reading it. The problem that most people have when they're designing logotypes, they are reading the words so they don't spot mistakes. So reflecting the logotype actually stops your brain from reading and starts perceiving possible things that are wrong, and they become very obvious because these are huge mistakes. Another testing method is the blur test. So we can't see the logotype in every situation it could ever be in. So what we do is we either pixelate it or blur it. If you can still make out the shape, then it's good. If you cannot, then you need to go back to the drawing board, or something has just gone wrong and you need to tweak it. Remember, a logotype is standalone, so it needs to work by itself as well as any other visual imagery that the client has asked for around it. So we test for these things through mirroring and through blurring, because if we can make the shapes look as nice as possible and flow as well as possible, it means that the type will work well as possible. Remember, a logotype isn't a font, it's basically like a symbol in words. Okay, the last secret method. A lot of people look at logotypes and think, I could never do that. It takes so much skill. And yes, it does take time and experience. However, you can start right now. You can start by failing really badly. In Logo Launch, we talk about this a lot, where I show my exact process and how I fail to get to success. By that, I time myself. If you've ever struggled with logotype ideas, this is one for you. Simply get your alarm clock out, put 10 minutes on the clock. Have a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, and start sketching ideas for your client or for your fake project. Most of your ideas, if not nearly all of them, will be bad, but this is a great exercise to get your brain working. What I normally do is I don't use an eraser at all. I call it the no eraser challenge. If I've got an idea, then that's great. I will work upon that idea that I've just drawn. But from that 10 minutes, I should have 10 ideas, 1 idea per minute without using an eraser. And if it looks terrible, but I can still understand it and it can work in my mind, I know that that logotype is probably going to look great once I've spent more time on it. This is more of the iterative process. Now, if you would like to learn logotype design, then I've got a course for you down below. Check the description. It's called Logo Launch. It's a decade of experience basically boiled down into hours and hours of lessons over at logo-launch.com. You also get to join a community and understand how we run our design agency here, how I went from freelance all the way into owning my own creative agency for brand identity. If you want to learn logotype design and separate yourself from every other graphic designer, Logo Launch is the place for you. So thank you guys for watching. If this video did help you, please subscribe, please share it with your friends, leave a comment and let me know what you would like to see next. See you soon. Goodbye.